everyone. This is Kathy Mason from Mason Works Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my new friend, Suzanne Pool. Hi, Suzanne.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Kathy. Good to be with you.
Oh, so everyone, I saw an interview with Suzanne, and then actually I went and watched a bunch of them afterwards, and we spoke. And she has a brilliant idea for you today. If you are looking to sell more products and services, because she has a way of helping you get your sexy back. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit of her bio so that it makes sense to you. So Suzanne Pool is an award-winning women's sexual empowerment coach, author, broadcaster, and speaker who is driving a unique niche in the women's leadership arena. Her life's work is predicated on the notion that sexual satisfaction leads to greater energy in producing revenue, more effective leadership, and a heightened sense of accomplishment and fulfillment. Yay! By chronicling her personal transition from a barren, celibate, career-obsessed existence to an abundant, purposeful life, Suzanne inspires her clients to take back their power and dominate their spaces from the bedroom to the boardroom and beyond. I love this because I came out of corporate too 20 years ago. And I know what that is when you have to, well, you've told yourself you have to play a part.
That's right.
Okay. So tell everybody if you would be so kind to share this journey of yours, because you really have an amazing story.
Thank you. Well, so do you. We all have amazing stories, but I appreciate that. So first of all, pardon the slightly odd accent. I am in London and I'm British, so I sound different probably from many of your guests. So bear with me. I hope that's okay.
Of course.
So about 20 years ago, I was a couple of years into my corporate journey, I would say. Like, I'd qualified as an attorney in London, and I was working in the music industry in the UK. And life was pretty good, but I was in my late 20s, and I come from a Jewish family, and really what my mother wanted for me was, yes, to go and get educated and have a good career, but she wanted a husband and children for me. And I was nearing the end of my 20s, nothing on the horizon, and then all through my 30s. And my mother sadly died when I was 36. But still no grandchildren, no husband. And in fact, even in that time in my 30s, completely, like it says in the bio, totally barren and celibate. Good career, but no sign of any action, really. And then just before I was 40, I realized that what I'm about is creating fun, freedom, and fulfillment for people. So I love that your show is all about conscious business, because it's really like I became aware of who I am, like what I stand for. And I was like, okay, that's great. And what if that's not just about, like, that's not just out in the world, but that's also for me too.
Right.
And I was like, okay. And a friend phoned me up the next day or so and said to me, do you want to go to a singles night? And I was like, oh, don't know about that. Anyway, I went to a singles night, and bearing in mind I'd been celibate, and I mean literally stone cold celibate, for 7 years at this point. I went to a singles night, met a guy, and lo and behold, no longer celibate. And at the same time, I pretty much doubled my income. I got a new job that doubled my income. I was like, oh, that's quite interesting. And I didn't think anything of it, but I'd been studying the principles of Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and he writes about the energy of the transmutation of sexual energy. And I was like, oh, that's quite strange. But I kind of put it to one side. And then suddenly it happened again. Like, I started having more fun and enjoying life in that sexual arena of my life. and I got a new job and doubled my income again. I was like, okay, this is really quite surprising. And then about a year and a half after that, my father passed away, and I found myself being laid off from my job. And I was like, what do I want to do now? Do I really want to continue being a lawyer? No, not really. And somebody suggested, and I was sharing this story, and somebody suggested that I start coaching women. So here we are. And now what I do is teach women that sex and sales are actually the same thing.
And I'm giggling because I don't know. I mean, it's one of those, it's not a taboo subject for me. I grew up in a Jewish home also. My father died when I was 21.
Okay.
And he was pretty much out at 19. So he was sick for 4 years or 3 years before he died. So I understand. I didn't marry Jewish. I wasn't. I totally get what you're saying, because there's something about being totally in your humanness and enjoying it that helps you enjoy everything in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have I wasn't taught. My parents were very amorous together in front of us. There was no question that I'm number 4 out of 5. So there was no question that sex was good. Did you grow up with a taboo, and then you felt like you did what society wanted you to until they passed?
Well, certainly. So definitely. Well, I think so. There's a few questions there, Kathy. Right. I think the first thing is to say is that I think that American culture and British culture have quite different relationships with sex. And I definitely grew up in quite a conservative family. We didn't really talk about sex. It wasn't really something that we discussed.
Wow.
And it didn't ever seem to me like it wasn't something that we couldn't talk about. It's just that we didn't talk about it.
Right.
And I shared that my mother really, what she wanted for me was to have a husband and get married. And
right.
That wasn't about the sex. That was about the family.
Right.
So it was like family values were very important in my family. And so it was just not a topic that we discussed. And, a lot of what happened once I turned 40, my father was still alive. He died when I was 42. But it's not stuff that I would have discussed with my dad either. No.
Well, I mean,
so it's like, it was, I was kind of aware, like I grew up in the 80s, right? So what I saw on TV was like Dallas and Dynasty, and, so there was kind of, but I went to a single sex school. So like, whereas a lot of American high schools are kind of mixed.
No, I went to a private girls' school too.
Right. So it's like, it was just not something that we talked about really. Well, and definitely a correlation, like an understanding of something as woo-woo. And, I can say this on this here because we're all talking about consciousness here. But understanding that abundance and sexual satisfaction are connected, that is definitely not something that we would have talked about.
Right.
That makes sense. Yeah. So no.
Yeah.
Like, that didn't even enter into the equation.
Well, my parents were very amorous in front of us and talked about, I mean, there would be cracks and dirty jokes and stuff. So, but we were also supposed to marry a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah.
and we were also, I went to private girls' school, same thing. I mean, you almost learned how to rebel against everything that you were supposed to do.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, it's interesting. I think because you said that you came out of corporate life about 20 years ago. So I think you're probably in very much your generation, I think, because I think we're slightly different generations. But
yes, we are.
I think it's your generation was very much like at the cutting edge of that notion of feminism and expressing, like, rebelling against the previous generation. I think it's amazing to hear that your parents were as self-expressed as they clearly were, because that definitely was, I mean, that didn't happen around my family, no.
Yeah. Well,
And
well
my mother was American, so I'm not saying this like as a kind of repressed British girl. No, my mother was American, and no.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know. I never really have talked to my girlfriends about all of this. But when I heard your interview and you were talking about the sexual energy changing you in the way that you took on life.
Yeah.
And that's what I really, we're going through these huge changes right now, and people are looking outside, and if they're holding on to what's changing, they're going to really have a rough ride. But if they go inside, and the work that you're doing, I mean, there can't be anything more fundamental in this vehicle than what you're offering, to really get in touch with you as a human being, as a sexual human being, and the potency of that, and the pleasure and the fun. I mean, why else would we be in these meat suits?
Well, so that's really well said. And calling it a meat suit is perfect, because that's what, like, you know, we're bone and meat, like bone and muscle. And that's what we are. I think, like, for me, it's really, and this is why I talk about getting your sexy back. You know, I'm 47 now, so I'm in those quote unquote perimenopausal phase of life. I mean, I just think it's menopause. Menopause is a process, but it's like I'm in that phase of life where, you know, women are typically told, well, childbearing is over, so we're kind of we're kind of consigned to the past. It's like life is a little bit over, and we're not you know, if we've got children, we're not grandmothers yet, but it's like, so there's this kind of notion that we're a bit past our sell by date. And I'm like, hang on a minute, I've got like as much life to live as an adult going forward as I've already had, you know. Like, I'm 47, and conceivably I'm probably going to live till I'm 85 or 90 realistically, right? And a good 20 years of my life up to now, I was a child, right? So now I've got this full 40 years, roughly, like full 40 years approximately of life ahead of me, where I'm actually like a functioning adult, hopefully, for all of those years. Don't consign me to the waste bin, like to the trash can right now. I'm not ready, right? And but it's like, so, but we spend this, like, we're always looking out here. It's like, okay, you need to dress like this, or look like this, or weigh this, or wear these kind of shoes, or have your hair like this, or not wear, you know, we've both got glasses on and that's a no-no, or and it's like, and especially in this time of the post-pandemic, where we've been in our houses really not interacting with other people for a long time. Maybe you've put on weight, maybe you haven't done the amount of exercise that you've done, or you've watched more Netflix than you might have done. It's like, so what? Does that make you less of a human being that deserves like the experience of feeling confident and well in yourself? No. And does it come from outside? No. It comes from in here. And that's really why I talk about, you know, we're talking about sex and sales being the same thing. And I break it down into a 7-step process built around the word courage. Because first of all, as business owners, it takes courage to run our own businesses. Can you see me okay?
Yes, I can. I was trying to feature you as you went through courage.
Okay, so courage. So it takes, like, we don't get, you know, it's like, oh yes, I'm just going to run my own business. It takes so much courage to own and operate your own business. And I didn't know that until I really started running my own business. And so I started, and when I looked at it, it was really like, okay, courage, what is that? And it's about being clear. It's about being open. It's about being unstoppable. It's about being receptive and allowing. And and I'll go through each one of these in a bit more detail. It's about being available and authentic and alive and aware. It's about generosity, and it's about expansion. And that's what courage, I say, stands for. And when you bring each one of those elements to your business, it will transform your experience of your business. And when you bring each one of those to your sex life, it will completely change and transform your experience of yourself and also your intimate relationship. Because it takes courage to actually be able to ask for what it is that you want in the bedroom or in a sales conversation or in any kind of a conversation for business. But in order to be able to generate that kind of courage where you can actually ask for what it is that you want, you really have to know. And so that's why it's really about clarity as the first step. Who are you in the matter? What is it that you want? Okay, so now you've established what it is that you want, you're clear. Then it's about being open about that. So actually having the willingness to ask. And I know for women, I know this for myself, being open about what we want in, like, sexually is really uncomfortable. It's a very vulnerable space. You feel like you might be rejected or laughed at or like some way judged. And but that's partly, but in being willing to share yourself in that way, you really create a level of trust for yourself that you can be confident in owning all of who you are, and create a level of trust in the relationship that might not otherwise be there. And so when you're developing a relationship like that, you start to expand the possibility of what the satisfaction in the relationship could be. And it might not just be it might be other than in the bedroom, but I say it is definitely also in the bedroom. Then the next one is about being unstoppable. So it's like, no matter what the response you get when you're as open about what it is that you've become clear that you want, being unstoppable in asking for it. So that's in your business transactions. I am worth this amount of money in being paid in this contract. We will deliver this. We promise to do this, being very clear about all of that. When you operate that way in your business, you create profoundly different types of relationships, particularly in the service sector. And again, in your intimate relationships, it doesn't matter how your partner responds. If you're completely unstoppable about asking for what it is that you want, you will start to experience your relationship differently. Now, in that experience, then you can start to look at, is this really the relationship for me? And that's about being receptive, which is the R. Because you might not get the response that you actually want. You might get a response that is like, no, I can't deal with that. That's not for me. I can't believe you're asking for that. And that's okay. But in knowing that, you can start to really look for yourself. Is this the relationship that I want? Is this the relationship that I deserve? Am I willing to commit to the time and effort that it's going to take to have this relationship go the way that I want? But unless you're clear and open and relentless and unstoppable in asking for it, you never get to the point where you can be receptive and allow that to be. Or you can realize that this isn't the relationship that I thought. And then it comes to being authentic and available. So receiving what there is, like just as it is, with no kind of, it might hurt, but just acknowledging that there's hurt. Just being available to whatever it is that you experience in the relationship and the person that you're in relationship with. And let's be clear, we think this business is somehow different from relationships and being a sexual being, but business is all about people. Business is all about communication. Business is all about reaching agreements. It's all about people. It's all about business and relationships. So they're totally the same thing. So then we be authentic, we be available, we allow for what is coming, and we bring generosity. Now, I don't mean generosity in like being nice. No. There's actually very little generosity in being nice. because in my experience, quite often being nice to somebody's face is just a way to allow someone to bitch and moan about them away from their face, right? So it's like a bit backstabby, actually. It's like, I don't know if you remember the band TLC, but they used to talk about them, the backstabbers, a bit like that. But generosity is really about being straight with people. So it's inside of knowing what it is that you want, that clarity, and that openness and that willingness to speak up, right? So you bring generosity, and then that leaves for the last letter of courage, which is E, expansion. And when you put all of these together in a little pot, and I like to think of myself as a little bit of a witch. So you put them all in the pot together, let the cauldron boil, and then what do you have? Expansion. And that's the E. So, Kathy, I hope like you've gone away. I don't know where there you are. There we go.
No, I was here. I was here.
A little bit of a rant, but yeah.
It was perfect though, because I wanted everyone to, courage is what I think is courage, and courage to know yourself, because we're using business as a vehicle to know yourself. We're using your sexuality, knowing yourself. A lot of this is about how do you want to show up? How do you want to have your life? And most people are not living their lives fully.
That exactly. And you know, and it's like there's this kind of notion that you might be one way in business and one way and another way in the bedroom, and it's like, but no, because when you're really authentic, like it's the same, you're the same person.
Exactly.
And if like where we are unapologetically ourselves, there's nothing to sort of like, you're not going to be different in the boardroom from the bedroom, because we're unapologetically ourselves. And let's be very clear, we do not have anything to apologize for. Nothing.
Well, the opportunity is to really learn and grow. But most people are afraid of stepping off the safety net and go live life.
That's right.
Right.
It's risky, but it's much more fulfilling.
Right. So,
and it does take. That's why the last letter is about the E, about the expansion, because it actually, and this is why it's summed up in the word courage. Because to step out of your corporate job and like your reliable monthly salary and the relationship that is okay but not, you know, it's like everything's kind of, you know, everything like on the kind of, everything's at about 55 or 60%, so it's okay, but it's not like everything that you see that you want. It takes courage to actually go, you know, 60% isn't enough for me.
Yes, that's so cool. And that's reflected when you love yourself enough to pick 95%, or as much as we're humanly capable, or go on the journey to find that, then everything that you touch is wonder. I think that. So C could also stand for curiosity. I mean, community. It's all sorts of things, because once you know yourself and you can be authentic, then although I still don't always say what I want to say, I'm learning how to ask and talk and communicate better through all of this.
How's that going for you?
Oh no, you're no therapy online, okay?
I'm just curious, because it is a challenge. Like, you know, I mean, I think it's great that you bring curiosity. Like, I would say curiosity comes before clarity, but it's like you have to be willing to ask the questions for yourself. So no therapy online. Don't worry, that's okay. I'm not a therapist anyway, so it's like. But
see, I see this as embodiment. I'm psychic and intuitive, so I've been out of my body a lot of my life. I'm aware of my environment. I wasn't fully present here. So sexuality has actually helped me get more present, embodied.
Right.
And actually that's where all the power is, because it comes out of your heart.
Yeah.
But it is self-love. It isn't just having the courage to ask for what you want, or even speak up. We weren't really taught, my generation, weren't really
No, same with
taught
my
to speak
generation.
up.
Well, still not. I mean, I think the kind of millennial generation and the teenagers and 20-somethings are much better at it than we were. But still, it's still quite taboo, is the honest truth of it. So yeah.
Well, the experience, why else would, again, I'm going to go woo-woo, but we're multidimensional beings. There's only part of us in this suit. Why would we do this if it wasn't to have all the experiences you could have in this meat suit? safely, lovingly, but the curiosity of it.
Which is exactly why one of the things that I work with my closest clients is about exploring restraint and bondage, and because it is about safety, but in the exploration of that, it alters relationships, because it allows for a degree of trust that might not otherwise be there. It allows for communication to be there in a way that might not otherwise be possible. So I fully respect what you're saying, and it's like we incarnated in the, you know, like, if you want to get woo-woo about it, it's like we incarnated at this particular time for a reason, and it is to experience whatever there is to experience. Why limit ourselves?
Exactly. Mm.
Mm.
And have a smile on your face.
Always.
Well, and why not? I mean, who said it was taboo? Who and
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, and we're looking at all of those original cultural programs that we were given lovingly by our family to make sure that we would be safe. We're looking all of those with a critical eye at this point anyway, because that was good for them, but does it really work for me?
Is it resonating with me? Exactly. But there's many of them I find that we're not sufficiently inquisitive of. That we just accept. And there's a degree of, it could be, it takes a degree of understanding and self-awareness to be able to really question the programming that we're operating inside of and the dialogues that we're operating inside of.
Mm-hmm.
So to hear that, which is what we're talking about, and I think it's great to hear that questioning is possible.
This is the time that we're questioning everything. We're on the cutting edge of change. We're going from we're going into the age of Aquarius, which is supposedly peaceful, and we're seeing this mess that's happening before we get to peace. Well, peace comes from here, comes from trusting. The outside scenario is a reflection of what's inside all of us. So I see what you're doing as brilliant support for people to really know themselves and love themselves at a totally different level that will affect everything. It'll affect every aspect of their life.
I agree. But it's what you said, it comes back to what you created earlier, which is really that it's about knowing ourselves. It's not about expecting the answer. Like, the answer, kind of what's going on internally manifests on the outside, and that's why we're seeing all the turmoil and the pandemic and like all the upheaval that there is on the planet right now, is because that's the turmoil that's going on in us as human beings. And so finding the kind of stability and the centering comes from within. It's actually it's a false narrative to look for it outside, which is commonly yeah, I don't want to go down the Bible route, because that's not a route that I choose to take, but it's like, look internally for what's satisfying and fulfilling for yourself internally.
Well,
Don't try and have the answers be given to you from outside very much.
so I really love the whole idea. There's two things that you bring up that I think are really powerful for my audience. One thing is the authenticity. We, in the past, I would say 10 years, the opportunity to show up as who you really are, and take the responsibility of, oh well, a third of the people won't like me. That's okay. That's their choice. A third will, and then some will be like, I don't know. So you've got at least a 30% chance of connecting with people if you show up authentically as who you are. And I think social media changed that. I think LinkedIn used to be the lawyer, your lawyer suit. I was a consultant with Arthur Andersen. I ran a division of Arthur Andersen with 80 people. So that suit is that LinkedIn kind of profile, and then there's Facebook, where your mess is showing everywhere. Maybe not pornographically, but it's showing. Your sexy's on. You can see what people are doing. They're showing their sexy on.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true for Instagram for sure.
You don't see
I
it.
think that you see, but social media, I find quite a funny thing, right? It's like social media, I think you've put it quite interestingly. Like, there's different characters that appear on the platform. So like LinkedIn is corporate, and then TikTok is kind of teenagery, and Facebook is kind of family oriented, and Instagram is kind of all the sort of 20 somethings like trying to be the influencers, and they're showing they're sexy and everything. And I find it, when I think it's very rare to see people on social media actually being authentic. You can tell when they are.
Interesting. Well, that's my hope, is that I thought for a conscious leader, that their authentic self. I mean,
Well,
a conscious leader is a servant leader, and
yes.
they take care of their employees as much as they take care of their customers.
Yes.
So they have to be authentic in themselves. I mean, they're looking at life as this is a team effort, and everything's relationship. With
Yes.
business is relationship.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I say that I think the ones on social media that are showing up authentically, you can really tell, but they're not so many.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I was hoping. I think the
I
people.
think you're one of them.
Anyway, I'm hoping that that's my truth. The other thing I wanted to add to that is that I've, in the past 3 years I've been doing this show, I've gotten to interview people that are like big influencers in business, in corporate business, that have written books that love is in the title.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. There's Steve Farber, who wrote Love, It's Just Damn Good Business. And I think he wrote it 3 years ago. And he was, I'm trying to think, Brian, I'm not going to think of, I can see the guy's face, but it's almost that old school Think and Grow Rich kind of corporate sales training, business training, marketing training that's 100 years old almost, but still built on fundamentals about humans. And he showed in his book, I think it was his book, and then Olivia Parr-Rudd wrote a book that Love Make It Your Business. And she's an IT expert. She's a Wiley author. And these guys have statistics about when love is in the business, in the marketplace, in the corporation, and people feel nurtured and loved, the profits go up,
Yeah,
and
performance.
it's
Exactly.
exponentially.
Yeah.
So it makes
Right.
sense that what you're talking about is how you get there yourself.
Yourself, yeah, exactly. But you see, what's interesting about that is that those kind of nurturing environments where love is present, I mean, they're very rare in the corporate world, in my experience. But when they're there, as you said, profits increase, productivity increases, revenue increases, and also, and it's a question of, does that translate because the employees have that level of self-awareness, or do the employees have that level of self-awareness? Because I don't think it matters, but
Right.
the importance is that when you have that experience of loving yourself and awareness of who you are for yourself, then what's okay for you and what isn't okay for you is much more clearly demarked. So it's like, okay, and then you can choose to operate in an environment where that experience of love is present, because you can
Right.
be in it.
Right.
But until you can actually acknowledge that you love yourself, it's really hard to be in that kind of an environment.
Right. And this time period gave people more time to work on themselves. That's why I was so excited to let everyone know about you, because you're doing such a gift. Okay, so I have another question for you about trust,
Okay.
because that has been one of my lifelong things that I'm learning.
Hmm.
And could you talk about trust and how trust is built with your work, with your coaching, or a
Sure.
story about trust being a success story?
Sure. So let me just check that I'm answering the question. Do you mean trusting of self or trusting of other people?
I think it's all the same.
Okay. Well, I think trust for me is a built phenomenon. You don't give trust. Trust isn't automatically there.
Right.
Like if trust is automatically there, there's a naivety to that think is, I was a lawyer, I think that's unsuitable for the world. Like, people don't work like that. And what builds trust of yourself and of other people is in performing small acts consistently over time, because you start to rely, like for myself, it's like, how do I come, like, over the years I've lost 40, 50, 60 pounds quite a few times in weight, right? Literally,
Wow.
that's also my currency, but it's like, but like, I've lost weight of 60 pounds multiple times, and each time it's relied on taking small actions consistently over time. And the point at which those small actions repeatedly done stops, the weight changes, the weight starts to go back on. And I saw it in the pandemic. Before the pandemic, I'd lost about 90 pounds. And I had a very good set of habits around eating well and exercising. And and the lockdown really kind of interfered with those very directly. But I did what I could to maintain those habits as best as I could. And I've put on weight, but I haven't put on as much weight as I might have done before. And it's because those habits were consistently done over time, right? And I make sure that I am reliable for delivering on that particular habit. And that creates a relationship for myself that I trust myself.
Right.
So it's like, so then, and once you build a foundation with small habits for yourself, where you can trust that you're going to do that habit, like perform that habit reliably, and it might be drinking water, it might be making the bed, it might be brushing your teeth, it might be writing a gratitude journal, like there's any number of things that it could be. But once you have a reliable habit for yourself that you consistently perform over time, say 90 days, then you can start to build on that and create habits for yourself that are more of a stretch, challenge your trusting of yourself to a greater extent. And one of those can be trusting others. Like, and trust me, like, believe me when I say I'm a reformed control freak. So, and I'm not even that reformed. I like to know everything about everything all the time, right? And it's that ability to trust, to create a trust in relationship, comes from having the trust of yourself first,
Mm-hmm.
and then also being willing to let go. Like, we can't know everything in the world. If we wanted to know everything in the world, well, either you'd need a giant brain, like a giant brain, or just have to accept that there's stuff that's out of our control. And we know, as we've talked about already, Kathy, it's like we're born inside of this meat sack, like with bones, and we're like one person in 8 billion people. You can't know everything about everything. You cannot.
Right.
So trust it's built around, for me at least, it's built around communication. And that's why coming back to the conversation that we were having about social media, I find social media very challenging because it's very difficult to know what's real and what isn't.
Oh. Huh.
And I think there's a lot of people, and and there's multiple different ways. It's like you can tailor the post, you can write the copy, you can put filters on it. Like, I mean, I'm pretty much on this show, like as raw as I've got a bit of lipstick on, but I've got no makeup on. Like, I'm not dyeing my hair, and but it's so easy to change the filters. You just don't know what's real.
Interesting. See, and I, as a marketer, as a communications person, I thought, and I still do, I think social media has allowed me to help my clients build platforms where they would have had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get visibility and get connections. On social media, they've hardly had to spend it's more time than money. And that is very, for authors and people that are change agents and need a platform. I mean, that's how I found you, as I
That's true.
on LinkedIn. So,
and go on.
No, so maybe I am Pollyanna, and I am looking at, but I'm seeing this as, hey, you have a message. We are going through this huge time of change. There are so many change agent leaders that can help people go through this change with ease and grace, with very little pain, compared to the people that are going to hold on to the old way. The old way is broken. And so it starts with us working on ourselves, creating new systems. I'm very happy to share who I am. This is me. I mean,
and I think
I didn't tell people I was psychic or intuitive until maybe 8 years ago.
Right. But you see, I think that's what's interesting, right? So you're right, you found me through social media, like through a Facebook, like LinkedIn, essentially, right?
Yes.
But there was a way that I communicated and you communicated that had us that resonated as authentic.
Exactly.
As authentic, but it's quite rare. And that's what I'm talking about. It's like you can find the gems when you're authentic, like you're authentic, I'm authentic, right? And whether the audience, like I believe that, but there's many people in the social world, in the social media arena, that are not at all authentic.
Right.
And I think it comes with the trust. You asked about how do we trust, like build trust. It comes with you trust yourself and I trust myself, and with that we can develop a relatedness.
Don't look at that. I have to get rid of it.
Which
Don't
bit?
worry. No, don't look at it. Don't lose. Here, I thought you were looking at the comments. So I got a question for you. What do we mean by...
I haven't looked at the comments, so I don't know what anybody said.
I've got to erase.
What do I mean by unstoppable, Peter?
Yes.
So I'm really curious now what they said.
Oh, no, it's spam.
Okay.
I'm going to have to get on and fix it.
Okay, so what do I mean by unstoppable? Not taking no for an answer, but not annoying people either. It's like, so if you experience a response in a communication or in a relationship that isn't the answer that you wanted, that you go and ask somebody else, or that you find out from the person who gave you the response that you didn't want, and find out what it was that had them give you that response. That's what I mean by unstoppable.
I see. Okay. Well, and then someone else put, business has been my biggest spiritual experience.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Well said. It's people, this business has this reputation for being very on the ground, kind of very numbers oriented, very pragmatic, which it is, but it's also immensely spiritual and growth enhancing, is what I say.
I don't think that most of the people that I've worked with for the past 21 years have only been focused on numbers. When you're passionate, you're passionate. And that's part of what I would love to direct you to talk about that too, because the energy that we spend worrying could be redirected to fulfilling a mission. I use that. I don't know if it's true or not, but I feel like I have a mission. And my mission is to wake up as many people as possible to their divinity. So is yours.
Yes.
So is yours.
Yes.
Only you're using a different model that has a little shock factor. It's really good. It's really good. But it's all the same. It's passion. It's like, you want to be a victim to everything, or do you want to show up fully embodied, excited to get out of bed and see what's going to happen today and be happy? Or do you want to be part of the complaining crew? And there's plenty of them.
That's right. It's about being purposeful. I mean, just, yes, purpose. You said mission. I deem it purposeful, but yes, that's absolutely critical, Kathy. I totally agree. And when we lose sight of the purpose and the mission of what it is that who it is that we are, that's when things go awry. Definitely.
Yeah. So your process that you offer people, I know you have a new class that you're bringing out.
I do. Based on the principles of courage that we talked about earlier. That's right. About how sex and sales are the same thing.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about that, if you would? I put up your website, B-U.
Yeah, so I'm going to put in the best way for people to reach out to me is to find me on LinkedIn, and you and I are connected on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way for people to find me.
Okay. I'll put that in here.
My course, co-hosted with Quinn Vo, I believe, who you saw in the class that I hosted, is a 7-week course based around it's about how sex and sales are the same thing. And we're looking at the principles of courage. So there's 7 letters in the word courage. So we'll be going through each aspect of the word courage that I shared with you earlier, 1 week. And it's a live interactive course where you'll be able to get coaching in that group environment, and really explore how you can bring courage to your experience of being intimate with your partner or yourself, if that's what you want. Like, look, we're all intimate with ourselves, and also into your process in business, and really have it expand your business.
I think it's brilliant. I was so excited when I saw that interview. And again, I feel like I was just guided to you. I don't have no idea. Oh, I know. I think somebody I didn't know emailed me.
Yeah, see, that's why, I mean, like, so the authenticity of who you and I are kind of shone through, and that's what brought us together. But that's quite rare. And the
Well,
rareness of that should not be underestimated, I think.
not with my crew. I'll have
Okay,
to.
very good. That speaks to who you are. Fantastic.
Well, but again, the thing is that all of those constructs that we were brought up with need to be looked at and decided if they serve you anymore. And if they're having you stay small and on your deathbed you're going to wish you've done this and this and this and this, then you need Suzanne. You need Suzanne to pull you out of that construct that's keeping you playing small. This is about passion to be here, to be life, to be a contributor.
That's right. Very much to be a contributor. That is exactly, to have your voice be heard, to know that your voice is heard, and to contribute what you're here to deliver on the planet. Very much well said. That's very much the case.
So can you give us, I know in one of the interviews I heard you talk about the exponential change in your personal income, but do you have any stories that you could share with everyone about other people, your clients, and
Sure.
the turnarounds that they've had?
So I've worked, I mean, I can't name names, but I've worked with women that came to me originally because they wanted to work on their sex life with their husbands, and then and what transpired is that they were unsatisfied with the boss and their working relationship that they had, and without doing anything, taking any action, what happened was that their boss was fired and they got a new boss that they then really loved working with, and that actually manifested into getting promoted into the job that they wanted. That's happened. I've had businesses that have added zeros to their bottom line with the women that I've worked with. I do tend to work with women mostly, so they've added zeros to their businesses in terms of the revenue that they've, and when I say zeros, that doesn't mean nothing. It means that they've added tens and hundreds of thousands of additional revenue to, well, tens of thousands of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars in additional revenue. I've just had a client that's gotten engaged. So yeah, like, I mean, really, when you work, when you become, like, when you dig into what's really going on and look at it from the future and uncover what there is for you in the future that you want, and then go to work on that, anything is possible.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm about, really.
Yay. Yay,
So,
yay, yay. Well, I hope everyone goes to your site. I'm putting, I'll put the banner up again that can make sure that they sign up to get on your email list.
Yes, please.
And get your Sexy Back book. This is a time for us to choose the opportunities available or to stay frozen. And I think a lot of people, with the way media is bombarding us with stuff all the time. I don't watch the news, but I get my news on Facebook. My daughter laughs and tells me that, but it's probably true. But anyway, because I don't want to put my energy there. I don't want to co-create with the universe at that level. I want to help everybody live their passion. And that's what you're doing.
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
That's great. So again, I put Suzanne's LinkedIn link in the chat as well. And Suzanne, anything else as we're wrapping up that you'd like to, the last.
Thank you very much for the questions. Thank you very much, Kathy. I think, like you said, I think it was divine inspiration that brought us together. I do believe in that. I do believe in that fate happening. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next time we have a conversation, which I know is sooner than you think.
Well, I am so excited about knowing you because I love your tongue-in-cheek way that you communicate, and you're a lawyer. So it somehow seems safer than working with somebody talking about these subjects that hasn't had the same education level. and the same grounded corporate appropriateness training.
I understand.
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you.
So
Likewise.
yeah, I understand. Yeah, that makes a difference for me. It's easier. It's easier for
Yeah.
me. So everyone, please, please, please do yourself a favor. Go sign up and get the free ebook and get on Suzanne's email list. Then you'll be notified when her class is up, and be curious about what else might spark the divine in you,
Yes.
because we're more powerful than we even have a small idea that we
Very
know.
true. Very true. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we'll talk again soon.
I look forward
Thank
to
you,
it. Thank you.
everybody. Please share
Bye.
this. Everybody needs it. Please share it.
Please
Thank
do.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.